In 1945, an engineer named Percy Spencer was standing near a machine that generated microwaves for radar equipment when he noticed the chocolate bar in his pocket had melted. Most people would have changed their trousers and moved on. He sent for popcorn kernels, held them near the machine, and watched them explode across the lab. 2 years later, his company sold the first microwave oven. It was almost 6 feet tall and weighed as much as a small car. But the thing sitting in your kitchen right now is a direct descendant of a machine built to find enemy aircraft. That is not an unusual story. It is close to a rule. An uncomfortable number of the ordinary objects in an ordinary home started as an attempt to solve a military problem, and the reason for that isn't that soldiers are unusually clever. It's that war removes almost every obstacle that normally slows invention down. Money stops being a constraint. The people who normally say a project is too expensive, too risky, or too strange go quiet. And there is a deadline attached to it that no peacetime research budget can imitate, because if you're late, people die. Under those conditions, humans invent at a speed they almost never reach otherwise. Take the most basic one, canned food. In the 1790s, the French army kept winning battles and then falling apart, because it couldn't feed itself on the march. Food spoiled faster than an army could carry it. So the government did something governments rarely do. It offered a large cash prize to anyone who could work out how to preserve food properly. A confectioner spent over a decade on the problem and found that food sealed in glass jars and heated stayed edible for months. He had no idea why it worked. Bacteria wouldn't be understood for another 50 years. He just knew that it did. Glass became metal, and the tin can went to war and never left. But here is the part that says everything about how wartime invention actually works. The tin can was patented in 1810. The can opener was not invented until 1858. For nearly half a century, the instruction on military ration cans was essentially to open them with a knife, a bayonet, or a rock. Nobody solved it because nobody had to. The can solved a problem that was killing armies. Opening it was merely annoying, and annoying problems wait. The same war produced something that saves lives in every city on Earth. Napoleon's chief surgeon watched wounded men lie on battlefields for a day or more, waiting for the fighting to end before anyone came for them, and most of them died of things that were survivable. So he built light, fast horse-drawn carriages to go into the fighting and pull men out while it was still happening. Then he added the harder idea. He decided that these men would be treated in order of how badly they were hurt, not in order of their military rank. An ordinary soldier bleeding badly went before an officer with a minor wound. That principle is called triage, and it is the reason a modern emergency room does not treat people in the order they walk in. The First World War left a stranger legacy. An American company had developed a wood bolt material as a substitute for surgical cotton, which was in desperately short supply, and shipped enormous quantities of it to field hospitals in France. Nurses there discovered it worked far better than anything they had for their own periods and started using it that way, quietly and unofficially. After the war, the company had warehouses full of material and nowhere to sell it to, and someone made the connection. The modern disposable sanitary pad exists because a battlefield bandage turned out to be good at something nobody in the company had thought about. The Second World War produced the machine you are almost certainly watching this on. At a country estate in Britain, a team was trying to break German codes fast enough for the information to still matter, which meant doing enormous amounts of calculation in hours rather than weeks. The answer, built in 1943, was a room-sized electronic machine called Colossus, the first programmable electronic digital computer. It worked. It shortened the war. And then it was classified so thoroughly that for decades the people who built it could not tell anyone. Several of the machines were destroyed on purpose, and the credit for inventing the computer went elsewhere. Some of the men who built the first computer died before they were allowed to say so. Penicillin is the case people get slightly wrong. It was discovered by accident in 1928, and then it sat there. For over a decade, almost nothing happened, because nobody could produce it in meaningful quantities and there was no urgent reason to try. The war supplied the reason. Infected wounds were killing soldiers faster than bullets, so an enormous joint effort went into manufacturing the stuff at industrial scale, and by 1944 there was enough to treat the wounded of an entire invasion. The discovery was an accident in peacetime. The mass production was a war effort. Nylon has the most abrupt story of all. It was introduced in the late 1930s as a miracle fiber for stockings, and it sold in numbers that startled everyone. Then the war began, and the entire supply was redirected to parachutes, ropes, and tire cord. Stockings vanished from shops overnight. Women in some countries drew lines up the backs of their legs with eyeliner to imitate a seam. The same material was, at the same moment, a luxury item people missed and the thing keeping paratroopers alive. Then there are the small ones. Duct tape was developed during the war because ammunition cases needed a waterproof seal that a soldier could tear open fast with cold hands. It was so useful that it walked out of the army and into every toolbox on Earth. Super glue was found by accident by a chemist trying to make clear plastic gun sights, dismissed as useless because it stuck to everything, and rediscovered years later. It is widely reported that field medics in Vietnam used it to close wounds when there was no time to stitch, and today a refined medical version of that same chemistry is used in operating theaters deliberately. The largest one is harder to see because it isn't an object. The network that became the internet grew out of a research agency created by the American Defense Department in response to the Soviet Union reaching space first, and the funding logic was strategic from the beginning. The satellite navigation in your phone has the same parentage, a system built by the military to know exactly where its own submarines and missiles were, open to civilians later. Every time your phone tells you where you are, it is quietly using an answer to a military question. None of this makes war worth it. The ledger is not close. Each of these objects sits on top of a number of dead people that no invention balances out. It's worth being honest that most of what war produces is destruction, and the useful things are a byproduct, not the point. But the pattern underneath is real, and it's uncomfortable, because it isn't really about war at all. It's about what humans do when a problem absolutely has to be solved, money stops mattering, and every reasonable objection is overruled. We have proven, again and again, that we can invent at that speed. We have simply never agreed on anything else urgent enough to do it for.